Alison, how are you? Good afternoon, and welcome back again to yet another lovely session. And you're really as brave as I am. Hi, Jane. Hi, Jane. Sorry, I saw Jane. Let's see if I can use this better. Hope you all had a wonderful evening, and you're well rested for today's session. Should be as interesting and as fun as the last one. Trust me. Where art thou, O live? So is my voice any better on this one before we start? Let me just verify that you can all hear me properly and no, it's all good. Because yesterday we had some technical problems, but looking at all the information here, it looks as if it's good. Oh, that's great, Alison. Yes, we're going to start off with interfacing now, so don't worry about it. We're just going to take it step by step. And no rush, no anything. And if some people are more advanced than some others, and those that can just go off and do it, that's fine. But if you really do need the help, just stay with me and I'll go through it step by step. So that's wonderful. So it's great to have you on board. And if we remember, we cut out all our pieces yesterday. And hi, Deb, how are you? Thank you very much. And thanks for joining us again today. We cut out the outer piece. We cut out the lining piece. If you're adding the contrast, the bottom bit to it, which is the overlay, we cut that out as well, and the interfacing that goes with it. And we also cut out the pockets. There'll be 2 pockets in it, so we have the 2 pockets as well. And we do have parts of the handle already cut out, but some might want to use fabric, some might want to use leather and fabric as the instruction says, and some might just want to use webbing. So it's all up to you. Hi, Trudy. Thank you. That's great. Alison wants to know how to pronounce my name. My full name is Titi Layomi Ninwolua, but everybody calls me Titi because it's a lot easier. Morning, Cheryl. How are you? And thank you for joining us as well. Alison, don't try and pronounce the full thing because honestly, some people have lost their teeth trying to pronounce it. But Titi is fine, and I'm cool with that. So, like I was saying earlier, we're going to try and we're going to finish with the interfacing of the pieces, and then we're going to move on to the next stage of the lining, working with the lining and adding the 2 pockets to the lining and finishing off the lining. Those are pretty quick. Now, whoever's not using the half moon clasp, that normally goes on at the end. I'm not using the half moon clasp. I'm just using the magnetic snap because I'm the rebel. So yeah, I'm just using a magnetic snap. So what I'm going to do is that would have to go onto the lining as well. So I'll have to show you how to do that once we get to that stage. And if you're using the magnetic whatever, then that's great. Or if you're using the buckle sort of magnetic snap, that's great as well. It's about, well, more or less the same process. So we're going to go on today and we're going to start interfacing all the bits and pieces together. So first things first, make sure you know the best temperature for the fabric materials you're using so we don't burn them or scald them or do anything funny to them. That happens to me a lot because when I tend to mix fabrics together, it just does all sorts of crazy things. But yeah, so if you're using 100% cotton. Make sure to interface all your pieces because you should already have cut out the pieces for all of them. With the faux leather, interfacing is not really required. But if you're using vinyl or anything like that, and if it's a bit stretchy, you might want to add some interfacing to it. So interfacing, and with the interfacing, all you're trying to do, like like Trudy always says, she's online, yes. She always says you're only trying to melt the glue on the interfacing. You're not trying to sort of like, create something new or do whatever. So just make sure that the heat from your iron is just enough to melt the glue on the interfacing and to attach it to your fabric. So that's the outer done. The next bit is going to be the lining. So we have a lining piece. Sometimes it might be necessary to, like I said, I didn't iron my fabric before I started, so it does need a bit of ironing before I interface. Hi, Verna, Elaine, how are you? Thank you for joining us today as well. And lining done. Next, we're going to interface the pocket pieces. They're just two of them, so 1, 2, quick iron. I know this is all the boring bit, and there's really nothing much to do, just working away and stuff, but it's all part of the process. Okay, and then we have the overlay. And remember, if you're using full leather, you don't need to interface. But because I'm using regular fabric, I have to do this extra step. Okay, all done. We're going to come to the handles later, and we're going to sort of do that on Thursday. But just today, we're going to concentrate on the lining piece, which is the main piece. So that's done. Yep. So first things first, there are some markings on the lining piece that we will need to transfer to our lining fabric on the wrong side of the lining fabric. So if you look right down the center, that's the dotted line down the center of your pattern is the center of the piece. So you would see some what do you call it, dot lines on both sides of the center line. We need to transfer those dot lines to our fabric, and yeah, that's the only one we need to do. So we have our fabric, and if possible, please try and put it on the wrong side of your lining fabric, because that's where we're really going to need it. So dot lines. And I'm using a pencil because it's on the wrong side, so I know it's going to be fine. Now, one thing for sure is I'm not yet a dressmaker, and I'm sure there will be easier ways of transferring dot lines and everything. But for now, what I've done is the first thing I did was I marked the bottoms of where the dot lines, the bottom where the dot lines, where they meet the fabric, I marked those. And then right at the point up there, I just put a dot through with my marker, well, my pencil. And then I joined the line. So that should give me the exact dot length, the dot length that I need. So if that works for you, that's great. But that's the way I've done that. And I think that's all we need to do for that. Okay, one last thing is, like I said, the two main pieces, they do have a center. So when you fold them in half, so that's your piece, that's my outer piece. When you fold it in half this way, you're going to get the center of the piece down here. So what we need to do is make sure that we have a nice crisp crease down there. So you can either do it with an iron, or you can just hand finger press it, or just to make sure that you have a crease there. It would assist us further down the line. Okay, and for this one as well, we just need to find the center. Hi, Sharon. Oh, do you, Samantha? I always use a pencil as well. But your instruction says marker, and I thought, ooh, that's posh. So, creases in place. And that's just for me, so I will remember it's there. So the next thing we have to do now is pocket number 1. Oh, no, we have to put the stabilizer onto. I knew I was going to forget something. So on the main, not on your lining fabric, on your main outer fabric, your nice funky looking one, we need to attach the stabilizer onto it. Now, although my stabilizer is a fusible, I'm not going to fuse it on. I'm going to sew it on, pin it all in place, and then sew it all around, because we always get to trim off the seams as well, just to reduce the bulk. So although it's a fusible, I shall not be using the fuse section of it. So we place that over our main fabric, and we pin it down. And we're going to sew around with a 1/4 inch seam allowance just to hold it in place. The reason why I'm using so many pins with a foam is because from experience, they just seem to sort of like clump up. I don't know why they do that, but the more pins I put in, the easier it is more for me to sew around them or to do anything with them. So that's the only reason why everything is being pinned for distraction. Oh, Samantha, you are posh. So quick whiz round, and it's a 1/4 inch seam allowance just to fix that into place. So we're just going to do that quickly. Did it say 1/4 inch or an eighth actually? It's a 1/4 inch, not 1/8. My pedal was having a party down there, so I had to go fetch it, but it's here. Good. almost done. Now, because of all the nooks and crannies and all the corners and things, it's just not one you could just wheeze all the way through. So that's why it's taking a bit of time, but we're almost there. And it's all done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to trim round the edges of the, we're going to trim round and reduce the bulk on the foam all the way around. Please don't cut into your fabric as you're doing this because the temptation is quite high to do that. So carefully just trim round. Lift the seam, lift it up slightly and close as cut as close as you can to the stitches that you've done all the way around. So that would reduce the bulk. And if you're using a home machine, that should make it a lot easier for you to be able to sew over the layers eventually. And whatever you do, just try not to snip your stitches either. Because well, I almost did that just now. Almost done, just a few more corners. and hopefully that should be done. The reason why I don't really like working from the back of the fabric is because there is a tendency to snip the upper fabric, so I tend not to. I prefer to work from the front, but yeah, I think I got it all. Okay, so that's it. And the foam has been attached to it, so we can see that's the front and that's the back. So you have the foam all nicely done all the way on the back. So we'll just place that there for a minute. And then we go back to our lining fabric. And like I said, we're attaching the pocket to the lining at this stage. And we're going to start off with the zipper. So if you have your zipper with you, we're using a 7-inch zipper today. So if you have your zipper with you, grab that. So for the small one is a 7-inch zipper, and the large one is, oh, it's a 7-inch zipper as well. Yeah, both of them are 7-inch zippers, so that's actually very, very perfect. So we're just going to add the zipper too. So we only need one for now. So the first one, and the measurements are, now remember the center line we put in the lining fabric down there. So it's going to be on this side, the tallest part. That's where the pocket is going to go, somewhere there. So it's going to be 3/4 of an inch from that middle line and 4 inches from the bottom. That's how you want to make sure that your your pocket fabric, the zipper pocket fabric, is laid. Yep, that's for the small. And for the large one, it's 2 by 5. So it's 2 inches by 5. So whichever size you're making, just bear that in mind. Look at the instructions and it should all say that. We need to put the markings from, which we already did. So yes. Yeah, so we're just going to attach the zipper pocket now, which is half. Where's the other ruler? 3. And you're attaching it to the right side of the lining. There. Once you have that nicely situated, please, as usual, pin it to an well, not too much, just 4 pins will do. So right sides, the pocket, the right side of the pocket is on the right side of the lining, 3/4 of an inch from the middle line and 4 inches from the bottom for the small one, and 2 inches in for the large one, and 5 inches up for the large one. So bear that in mind. And once I've pinned this down, I'll show you what I mean. So that's what it's going to look like. So you can see that's my pocket fabric, and it's facing right sides together, and 4 inch, because I'm making the small one, so that's 4, and that's my middle line, and it's 3/4 of an inch from the middle line and 4 from the bottom. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have to draw the, if you know how to make a zipper, you can just go ahead and whiz through making it. But if you're not sure, the next step is going to be making the little box for the zipper. And to do that is we need to draw a box. How many? 4.5 by 4/1/8. So we're drawing a line 4.5 up. So the size of the little box, the width of the box is going to be the length of our zipper, which is 7 inches, and the height of it is going to be 3/8 of an inch. So, but we're going to, so it's going to be done 4.5 inches for the very topmost line and 4/1/8 of an inch for the bottom one. So using your ruler, make sure it's nice and centralized. Remember, the box you're drawing should be no more than 7 inches long, because your zipper is 7 inches. If your zipper is longer than 7 inches, don't worry about it. You're just going to trim it down to whatever size it is. But just make sure that your rectangular box 4, so I'm going to show you that. I'm not sure how clear that will be. So that is the rectangular box that's been drawn there. And right in the middle of that box, we're going to draw another line right in the middle of it, but it's not going to go all the way down to the ends. It's going to stop about 3/8 of an inch from both ends. So draw a line straight down the middle. Okay, so we're drawing lines straight down the middle, but it doesn't touch the sides. It doesn't touch the sides of the rectangular box. You leave about between 2/8 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch of a gap, and then from the point where the lines stop, draw a line into the corners of the box. So you have a box, and then at the end of the box it has like a Y shape. So there's a line right down the middle, and it has like a Y shape. So that's what you should, upside down, and that's what you should see on there, the way the box has been drawn. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our sewing machine, and we're going to sew right round the outer perimeter of that box. The inner line we leave for now, and we just sew round the perimeter of the box. Just seeing if there were any questions I need to answer, but Samantha seems to be on the case, so that's great. So what we're going to do now is the perimeter of that box. We're just going to sew all the way around, all the 4 edges of it. And once that has been done, then the fun begins. I think the fun part is when you actually have to snip. So we'll do that. So I'm using variegated thread, and you can actually see, if you should be able to see the color all the way round the box, the way I've just sort of like sewn it all the way around. And if you look at the back, you can just see the thread just going on the outer perimeter of the box, and that's what we want. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to snip right down the center of that line. You remember this, the line we drew down the center. Now we're going to snip into that. We're going to cut all along that line, and then we stop at exactly where that Y shape begins. We're going to stop there and then cut diagonally into the Ys. But please make sure you do not trim, you do not snip into your seam. I always start off with my seam ripper just to make a small hole. I do have another gadget I could use, but my seam ripper seems to always do the job. And when you're trying to cut into that Y shape, as in going into the angles on the sides, just take tiny little baby steps. Don't go too much so we don't cut into our seams. I've never ever tried to fix one, but I don't want to try today. So okay, I've managed to snip as close as I can without cutting into my fabric. So at this stage, we took out all the pins and everything, and I wouldn't go through. I will iron once I've turned it around, but another thing we can do is lift up. So with the pocket facing, the wrong side of the pocket facing you, lift it up, iron and press the seam there, then lift it up this side, iron and press the seam, and then lift it up on this side, iron and press the seam, lift it up on this side, iron and press the seam, and then you turn it the other way. But I'm just going to turn it, and then I'm going to sort of like iron the life out of it. So you're pushing it through the hole we've just cut. to the other side. So as you can see, all I just need to do now is give it a nice good press, and hopefully that should make it look nice. So try as much as possible to sort of press down the edges, because they do crinkle a lot, and it looks as if it's not right. But if you give it a nice good press, some people sort of spritz it with a little bit of water or something, but I just find out that a good pressing does the trick for me all the time. So I'm just going to give it a nice good press. And once that has been done, you should have a little window like that. And that window is where our zipper is going to sit. Now, at this stage, if you want to use double-sided tape, you can. If you want to use, I've never used glue, but double-sided tape, yes, is one that I know that you can use. So you can add double-sided tape to hold down the zipper before you sew over it. But like most things, I don't really bother about double-sided tape. But like I said, if it's something you would like to do, please go ahead and use it. But I'll just pin it into place and you'll be fine. And decide what direction you want your zipper to be. Either it opens from left to right or right to left. And make sure that your zipper tab is facing the closed direction. So if you're opening from left to right, your zipper tab will be on the left. If you're opening from right, it will be on the right. Yeah. So nicely position your zipper. And again, I use lots of pins. And every single thing I do, I would rather pin than use tapes or anything. But please use whatever it is that's easiest for you. So as you can see, all I've just done is I've pinned all the way around, and you can see the zipper peeking through that hole that I've just laid. So the zipper is, so that's the full zipper there at the back. So you're just making sure that the zipper teeth from the tab to wherever, well, the end of your 7 inches is poking through that hole that we made. So that's your zipper at the back, the full length of your zipper. But I've just positioned it so that, because my zipper is actually 8 inches, so I'm just to cut off excess. So, so I'm just going to sew round. And at this stage is where I would normally swap my zipper foot, which is down there. So if you've got a zipper foot, it's a lot easier to use it, because most of them, the way they are made, they taper, so it sort of bypasses the zipper tab, and you don't catch it when you're trying to sew down. So if you know you want a nice, straight, clean finish, change to a zipper foot. Oh, Alison, if you want me to go over what I've just done, just let me know. But it's quite easy to do once you know how to do it. It's honestly, it's the only way I know. Well, I think it's the only way I know to make zips, to put zips into, bag sides and stuff. So if you do want me to go over it, just let me know and I'll whiz through it again. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew around the four corners of the zipper. So I've pinned it nicely. Now I'm just going to sew all around so I fix the zip. You might need to move the tab depending on the sort of zipper foot you've got. Some of them are a bit bulky, and the zipper tab does get in the way, so you might need to move it out of the way. Sew past it. When you get to it again, stop, lift your foot, and then move it out of the way again, and then continue sewing. But it depends on the type you've got. So check the one you have and use accordingly. Okay, that's that done. And as you can see, the zipper is now attached. All the pins are out, so the zipper is there, and hopefully it should work. So, hello. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to trim off the excess tab that I've got there. And the only reason I'm going to do it is because it's got a metal clip and I wouldn't want to catch that somewhere along the line. So off you go. And the other one, I believe I can leave because it should not come in contact with anything. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the top of our, with the longer part on your left hand side, the longer part of the lining, so like that, wrong side facing you, the top part of the zipper pocket, bring it down to meet the bottom part, and then we're going to sew around that with a, so we're going to stitch round 1, 2, 3 edges, and we make sure we don't catch the lining in any way. So please try and make sure that the lining is out of the way when you're stitching. I've finished with my zipper foot now, so off it goes. Most Cheryl, the zipper method, it's, well, most of the bags I've made, that is the method I see most of them using. So I don't know if it's something that's, well, most designers just like, but then I have to sort of figure out the patterns that you've done that I haven't done, and I'm sure there'll be loads of them. But yeah, it's one of the methods I know that I used, and it's nice, it's easy, it's straightforward. Once you know it, it's easy. You just do it. Most times you don't even think about it, you just do it. So now what I'm doing is I'm sewing the zipper pocket shut and making sure that I do not catch the lining. So I've moved the lining completely out of the way, as in it's not under the zipper, under the machine foot at all. And on this side as well, I move the lining fabric out of the way so it is completely out. And voila, the zipper pocket is all sewn in, nicely sewn in, and the zipper looks good on that side too, except for this trailing thread. So that's that done. Next, we're going to create the slip pocket, which is the pocket, the second pocket that goes on the lining fabric, and that should be a lot easier to do. So we're folding it in half. So it's going to be, so if we remember when we cut the pocket out, the pocket was, so that's the long side, that's the short side. So we're folding it in half. So the long side is halved and the short side is still going to be the way, well, whatever size it is. So we're going to leave the normal way we all sew pockets and things. We're going to sew, leaving a gap, and then we turn it right side out and do all the bits and pieces. So I'm just going to go that way and then that way. And one thing I do is, because I'm leaving that gap in the middle, I start sewing from the top here. So I sew about 3 or 4 stitches in, and then I turn it sideways, and then I start coming all the way down. So when I need to fold that gap, the stitches are already there and they sort of like mark exactly where they need to go. So that's a method I've always used, but whichever method works best for everybody, as long as we get the right. So about 3 stitches, then I turn and start sewing down the side I want. So if you look at the top there, you'll see the tiny 3 stitches I've made up there and up there. It always forms the nest, so ignore the nest. So I'm just starting from that side and it's done that. So when I flip it over now, that is going to sort of, and iron it, that's going to fall into place as well. So I need to snip my edges. So reduce the seam allowance, cut into at the corners especially. Trim down the seam allowances so you can have a nice crisp edge. And then we turn it right side out. So I've turned it, and like Mrs. H says, her trusty little crochet needle. Poke out all the corners, make sure everything is nice and crisp at the corners. And then I'm going to iron so it's nice and crisp. So as you can see, the gap is nice and flat. Every single thing looks nice. So I'm just going to press that nicely into place. and it's going to be going on the lining fabric just below the zippered pocket. So the next thing is we're going to have to place, we need to top stitch round the 3 edges, sort of like top stitch all the way around. So that's the 1/8. No, 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 no. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to top stitch the folded edge. So that, yeah, that bit, we're going to top stitch it 1/8 of an inch. Increase stitch, I always use 4. But it depends on what everybody's preference is. I always use 4. So that's folded part, not the open part. The folded part. Some people, well, actually, I always use that for the bottom bit, and I always stop. Yeah, so just top stitch the folded bit 1/8 of an inch from the top. Okay. The small pocket, the instructions and the distance from the top, from the zipper teeth, where to place the slip pockets are already in the pattern. So just follow the instructions in your pattern and place your slip stitch. And if you're making the small, that should be on number 20. I don't have the instructions of the large printed out, but it'll be there if you're following as well. So you'll be there somewhere. Oh yeah, actually it's at the same place as well. So the large one is there as well in the same place, and it tells you what the distance is from the zipper. So once you've done that, just put a couple of pins in so it doesn't move and it doesn't shift. And then we're going to sew down the 3 sides. Now remember, you've got the zippered pocket at the back of it. You want to make sure it's out of the way, so you might need to pin it up. So move the zipper pocket up that way. That is where the slip pocket is going to be. So you want to move your zipper. If not, that's how the zipper pocket falls. Lift it up out of the way and just pin it out of the way. And then We just sew down 3 sides to secure it in place. Remember, the turning gap is now facing downwards. It's now towards the bottom of your bag. As we go over, as we sew over now, everything is going to be enclosed, and the little gap is going to be closed up. So we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. My pocket is slightly too big, but I like it like that. So just the slip pocket though, because I haven't used I didn't use the seam allowance mentioned in the book, but the seam allowance and all the instructions are there. So you should now have a slip pocket down there, which is just right over your zipper pocket. So both of them should now be done. And now we're going to finish off the lining. So you remember the dots we put on the wrong side of the fabric. We're now going to fold our fabric. So that's your lining fabric. God, I hate fraying. Okay, so we're going to fold it in half, matching all the seams and matching all the bottoms and everything. So we're going to make sure that they match. So we've folded on that central seam line there, and you know we had the dots that we drew. So we're going to sew on that dot, exactly on the dot line. We're going to sew all the way from the bottom all the way to where the dot line stops up there. So from there, where my left hand is, we're going to sew up to here, right over the dot lines up to there. So that's the first thing we're going to do with our lining. And that section, I asked somebody this morning, as in I was reading through it and I thought, oh my goodness, this doesn't make sense right now. So I had to call Lynn and say, please, what does this mean? Lynn has made it so many times. So I knew she knew what she was talking about. And so if it doesn't make sense, just follow the instructions. It works in the end. Okay, so that's it. So right on the line. Then the next thing is we're going to sew the bottom right across and then press it open. I'll just finger press it open, but please, if you want, you can actually just press it with an iron just to open the seams up. And your stitching will be 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So when you sew in this side, you know, the darts, just sew on the dart lines, fine. We don't bother about what size the seam allowance is. But when you get to the bottom bit, please make sure we're using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And we use 3/8 of an inch unless the pattern says otherwise. And that's why I have to keep checking to make sure I know exactly what it says. So it's 3/8 of an inch seam allowance for the bottom, because it's going to change. Technically, you shouldn't catch the slip pocket when you're sewing the bottom bit, but just check just to be on the safe side. Like I said, press open. Okay, please feel free to take it to an iron. I just hate ironing, but yeah, it's nice pressed open, and I'll remember to open it anyway when I do the other side. And then for the side seam as well, 3/8 of an inch all the way down. So just that bit to that bit. So all we're going to have left is just this flappy bit. So we just want to sew from there to there, 3/8 of an inch. And please make sure that the pocket is out of the way. It shouldn't get there, but please just check just to be on the safe side. And again, press the seams open. Pressing the seams open, it does help later, and it does help reduce bulk, because then single thing is well sort of distributed. Now the next bit we're going to do is we're going to box the corners, and that's those places in there, which is why we needed to sort of press the seams open so that it's nice and easy to be able to box the corners. Now, boxing the corners, we are going to have to sew with a seam allowance of 1/2 an inch. So you have two options. You can actually just draw the 1/2 an inch line on if you don't know exactly where it is on your machine. And if you do know exactly where it is, then that's fine. But I think I just sussed out where mine is. I've just used the ruler, placed it under the needle at the very point where I want it to be, and I've just measured. So I know it's exactly where it is, and I know what line to look at if I decide to go that route. Or you can just draw 1/2 an inch seam allowance and sew that down. So make sure you match the seam allowances from the bottom with the side. Make sure they match nicely. If not, the boxed corners don't really work that well. And I'm trying to find where the two stitchings where they meet. And then, like I said, we're stitching half. The seam allowance on this one is 1/2 an inch, so we're going to have to make sure that it's exactly 1/2 an inch, because it's going to make a difference to what we do. So that should be 1/2 an inch. And if you're not sure you can make a straight line, please draw just measure 1/2 an inch from the tip of the box in, and then just sew right down that line. and there. And we can trim that down to 3/8 of an inch, which should be roughly about there. And we do that for the other side as well. And then just trim it down to 3/8 of an inch again. And the lining is done. Now, when we finally do the flap, as in the flap all round, we're going to be sewing at 1/2 inch. The seam allowance all the way around it is going to be 1/2 inch, if I remember correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw the 1/2 inch all the way around, and this I'm going to be using magnetic clasps, sorry. So I'm going to draw the line in so that it's going to be easy for me to place my magnetic clasps when I want to place it. So that's 1/2 inch up there, all the way down. Because I'm working on the wrong side of the fabric, I really don't mind using pencil or stuff like that. But if you want to use a marker that you can easily get off, please do that. So that's 1/2 inch. Okay, I hope you can see the pencil marks. You can see that I've just drawn 1/2 inch all the way around. So when the bag is closed, that bit is it's going to be the bit that's going to clasp onto the other, that's going to clasp onto the magnetic clasp that's on the underlay down there. So if that is the bag, it's going to come that way and it's going to fit on there. So what we have to do now is place the magnetic clasp somewhere on there. Now we have to reinforce the fabric and make sure that it does not, so that it gives it more firmness. So I'm going to add foam, and yeah, I'm going to add a bit of Decovil, and I'm going to add a bit of foam to the back of the lining fabric just up there. And I know exactly where that would stay. Okay. So roughly from the if you look at the pattern, you've got that shape there where it shows you where the snap is going to be placed on the overlay. So what I've done is I've taken the flap of the lining, laid it over, and I've matched the I've used the measurements of the line I've drawn, as in I'm not starting from the edge, I'm starting from the half-inch line that I've drawn. I'm using that over the dotted lines, and then putting a mark on where I want the magnetic snap to go. So please bear that in mind when you're trying to find the exact placement. Yep. So it's going to be somewhere there, and it's going to overlap slightly when you do put the clasp on. So I'm going to add a little bit of and I should have a little bit of Decoville somewhere. I'll just grab some Decoville as well. So those are my two lovely pieces of interface stiffeners I'm going to be using. So whoever it is, I can't remember who said they wanted to use a magnetic clasp. So that's how we do it. And if you have any questions, just pop them in and let me know. Okay, so that I can I don't know how you saw that, Samantha, because oh my goodness, you've got good eyesight. So I'm just affixing, and please make sure you are fixed to the and I'm just going to press that into place. Okay, dokes, done. And then, like we normally do, just hold. I'm trying to figure out which one goes where, so either the male part or the other part, but yep, got it. Okay, so that's it on the lining side, facing exactly where it's meant to go. I'm going to trim down the foam a bit more because I can see it jutting into the lining seam allowance. So I'm just going to take a bit of it off, and it should be good to go. And that the lining is done. That's where I was hoping to stop today anyway. And on Thursday, we'll start with the handles and the different variations of the handles. So if you have any questions you want me to look into, could you please pop them in there and I'll try and answer every single one of them. But thank you so much for your time today. Thank you. It's been fun. I'm actually really enjoying myself on this one. And though the pattern really looks funny and all, it's quite a very easy sew. It's easy to sew. It's once the thing is, once I get my head round what the pattern is like and what it's doing and what it's not doing, it's really fast and easy to sew. I've heard that being said by many other people that have actually made it, but because I had never made it. But looking at it now, once it's been cut out, it's just all the same process as any other bag you would make. So you put in the pockets, you know, get the lining done, and then you get the outer done, and you put it all together, and your bag is done. So I hope you've enjoyed yourself today. I've really had fun sewing with you. And Thursday, we'll now do the handles. The handles will be slightly different. The way I will do the handles will be different from the way Samantha has said, but I'll talk you through what's in the instructions, the pattern as well. So don't worry about that. And if you do want to use an what do you call it? Free, what's it called? What's it called? If you want to use webbing, yes, if you want to use webbing as well, just make sure the webbing is the same size as your hardware. The hardware we'll be needing on Thursday would be the tri-glide and the triangular ring. So we'll be needing those two hardwares. And if you've got the moon clasp, please come in with that as well. That will be done on Thursday, but part of it might be done. It'll be done on Friday, but part of it will be done on Thursday as well. So most of the hardware stuff will be done on Thursday. So I'd like to say another big thank you to everybody. See you all on Thursday and have a lovely evening. Bye.